Hello, everyone. I'm seeing you all on this beautiful rainy day in the good old CLE. But aside from that, right, I'm coming at you guys with the entirety of my handheld gaming collection. Yes, I know this was worth the wait. I hope this was worth the wait. But we got new angles, new vibes. Those are like the only two new things. I was gonna like delve into a couple more, but obviously it didn't work out that way. So, but without further ado, why don't we just get straight into the video? First up, we've got the Game Boy Pocket. Yes, Game Boy Pocket. I almost confused with the Game Boy Micro, which is a lot smaller. It actually plays advanced games and all that jazz. But the Game Boy Pocket. Overall, I thought this was like a more rare version of the Game Boy than it actually was. There aren't that many like rare versions of the Game Boy, I don't think anymore. But I actually do prefer this to the original Game Boy because although the original Game Boy is iconic, I find it way too clunky for my taste. The Game Boy Pocket is a little more sleek. I like how it's kind of smaller. Well, not kind of. It is smaller than a Game Boy Color. But the Game Boy Pocket is a great, great, great system for those who are actual Game Boy enthusiasts. I am not a Game Boy enthusiast aside from the Game Boy Advance. That was like my first handheld, so I got a little bit of a soft spot for it, like right here. Actually, the DS was my first handheld. The Game Boy tended to belong to my brother, but the Game Boy Pocket is it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Next up, the Game Boy Advance. Yes, sir. Look at that thing over there. So it's like the Glacier Game Boy Advance. Pretty solid. It's still got some batteries in there. Not still because these have been changed recently. I'm looking in it right now for acid, some damage, whatever. But the Game Boy Advance is a system that I hold very dear to my heart. As I mentioned earlier, some of the first handheld games I played were Game Boy Advance games. I actually, funny story. So when I'm about to show it off, I'll explain a little bit more about it. But when I first got my DS Lite, I was upset because I thought it couldn't play Game Boy Advance games, but it could. I just was really thrown off by the little thing at the bottom where it covers the slot so dirt doesn't get in. I think that's why. But I was sitting there like, that thing can play all the games that I have. Like, what's going on? And then I was like, oh, this thing can also play Game Boy Advance games. But the Game Boy Advance is awesome. Some banger titles on the system. We got Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission. I'm playing through Zero Mission right now. It's pretty solid. I know it's just a remake, but still. The Pokemon games, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, even some of the licensed stuff like the Shrek Super Slam GBA game. Insane pull, I know, but it is a banger game, man. I'm telling you, the Game Boy Advance has hits. Sonic Advance. I didn't even mention the Sonic Advance trilogy. Honestly, a very underrated trilogy of 2D platformers and Sonic games in general. Period. And the Sonic fan base normally scraps for whatever things they can find. Speaking as someone who's a Sonic fan, so it's just very strange that those games aren't talked about that much. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. The Game Boy Advance is the next system in this entire video. And I'm going to be trying my best to organize these things, keep these things kind of in release date or release order, chronological in terms of when they're released. But I'm going off dome knowledge, and that's pretty much it. But next up, I've got the Nintendo DS, this original bad boy, the chunky one. Yes, that's sir. The DS, not that many people are fans of, but I'm a fan of this thing because it's weird, and I like really weird things. Okay, I like the Sega Saturn. That's weird, right? I like the Sega CD. I don't have one, but I like it, and it's kind of weird, right? I like the Wii U when I was younger, a little bit because it was the only thing I had, but mostly because I chose that too. I could have chosen like a PS3 or something, but it was weird. It was very weird, and I think the original Nintendo DS, as weird as it is just a cool system. Like I feel like when you look at something like that with the, how different it is in design, even stuff like the original D pads, it looks like this is something that is like a prototype. It shouldn't really have made it out the lab, but it did. And I'm very curious because the data is out there somewhere. I just haven't Googled it, but I'm curious to see how many people bought this rendition or iteration of the DS as opposed to anything else. I got my DS in or this D yeah, because so I had a DS Lite, but I had a DS Lite before I had this. But then my brother and I both got our own versions of these. So I had this DS. My brother had this DS as well, but like we both just had two different DSs, and they both looked exactly like this too. So I feel like eventually maybe there was like a price drop or something, but you can already see it's yellowy and like it's in really bad condition. I don't think I'm ever gonna get rid of this because this is an OG addition to the collection. This is an OG part of the Handheld collection. I forgot to also mention that for the other two. The Game Boy Advance is not an OG part of the collection. Now, the Game Boy Pocket, that is a that actually no, that's not an OG part of the collection. Oh my goodness, I almost threw myself off. This is the first OG part of the collection that we're seeing, and I just absolutely love this DS. This is my DS. The other one had the hinges snapped off, so like these, just this part just came off, and I'm really hesitant to even demonstrate something like this because I'm afraid that like it's waiting for me to just go, oh, we're demonstrating how this comes off bed. Boop. Um, and I don't think that was like a kid thing or like a me thing or like my brother thing because I have not seen any of these or not that many of these in good shape. People have talked a lot about how like the hinges are just kind of really bad on them, and that's something that respectably, you're gonna have to deal with if you want one of these bad boys. But I think mine, in terms of playing DS games, still works. So that's also another thing I'm cool on. I also got the stylus for it. The stylus is also really cute. It's like really nice. It's hard. Maybe I'll try and like put an image of it later in the video, but it's really really different. Because I used to look at that slot and go like, wow, that was a slot for the stylus. But it makes sense because again, this is the very first time they tried out the Nintendo DS, the concept of using the Nintendo or making the Nintendo DS. So it makes sense that there's some things that are like a little weird about this thing. But yeah, it looks cool. Very prototypey. That's the thing I love about it. Next up, I've got one of my favorite handhelds of all time, the Game Boy Advance SP. Oh my goodness, this thing is a banger. First off, I know the original Game Boy Advance does that, but like when I see that on this type of screen, on in this form factor, the memories just start flooding to my head. Right, the Game Boy Advance SP was something I played on a ton as a kid. Mine was like that teal blue, like the light blue, as opposed to like the dark blue. But you take whatever you can. I got this one right when I first started collecting video games. I got this off Facebook Marketplace from really chill guy, and I was excited to get this because I kept all my Game Boy Advance games. In fact, they are all still in this little pouch. It has like Mario on the front, so kind of in that like standard pose that he was in a lot in the early 2000s, and it has like a switch and carry logo on the back of it. But I got this from my cousins like 15-ish years ago, probably now at this point. It's been a long time. Actually, no, it's probably been longer than that, maybe like 18 years ago or 19 years ago. It's been a while. And so I am just forever grateful every time I see this thing because it's awesome. And its form factor is dope. Okay. I love the original Game Boy Advance. Do not get me wrong. I love the original Game Boy Advance, but the Game Boy Advance SP, the Game Boy Advance SP, when it comes to putting it inside your pocket, this thing is unparalleled, man. This thing is literally unparalleled. It's goated with the sauce. It's amazing. It's incredible. There's not much more else I can say about this thing. I love the Game Boy Advance SP. It's awesome. So I'm debating whether or not I want to run through the Nintendo handhelds first and then switch over to the PSP handhelds. And a part of me is telling me that, like, you know what, like you should do it back and forth because overall you can kind of give like a good, like, hey, maybe you were a DS guy back in the day, or maybe you were a PSP guy or gal back in the day, right? But I think a part of me is like, you know what, like maybe I should just go through all of them. But I think it'd be weird to go like from the 3DS back to like, the PSP. So we're gonna probably do the former. But before we do, let's introduce the Nintendo DS Lite. Now, this is one of two Nintendo DS Lites I have. This is not the original DS Lite I have from childhood. As you can clearly see, it's been reshelled, but I didn't do that reshelling. I had a friend who did that reshelling for me, and I love the color purple. Purple is my favorite color, so I was like, well, I'd kind of be a fool to skip out on a really dope DS Lite, especially when my childhood DS Lite does not work that well. So I was like, yes, I want this DS Lite, and it's pretty dope. It's pretty cool. It's kind of almost like that matte purple, like just really dope looking, really nice, and yeah, it's really cool. Cover is also purple as well. Not too much to say about this thing, aside from the fact that this is easily the best version of the DS. Actually, I stand corrected. Well, if you count the DSi separate, I feel like the best way to experience everything the DS had to offer is the DSi. Get yourself a DSi, mod that thing because it's really not that difficult. I'm not gonna, show you how to mod that thing. Because I don't remember off the dome, honestly, too. But also because I just can't. But the DS Lite is still a very good choice if you want to experience original DS games. I mean, it's either this or the original DS, and so I wouldn't recommend the original DS. But I think the people who recommend this over the DSi, um, nah, nah, I'm not doing that. So, but the DS Lite is incredible. So, and here is the childhood DS Lite. Now, I think I found one of these right somewhere, or this is like the actual cover I used to have. But I remember not having the cover for a while. But the DS Lite that I used to own is this specific one. It kind of had like the blue uh, like the blue cover right here, but then everything was black. That's kind of how the DS Lite just was in terms of colorways. Like the top was the actual color, and the bottom was just always going to be black. So you had the red, you had whatever. I was always jealous of people who had the red because red was my favorite color growing up. But you know, when you're 7, you only have so many options, man. You only have so many options. So you work with what you got. But the DS Lite is a good system. So yeah, you already know what time it is. Cue the Rukia music. Cue You Weren't Here, I Missed You. Cue just as much drum and bass as possible. We've got the PSP. Now the PSP is how do you put it? It is a trailblazer in terms of handhelds, right? It came out around the same time that the Nintendo DS did. But the difference between this thing and the Nintendo DS is that this thing had aura, it had sauce. You could play movies through here. You could play music. Just an overall multimedia powerhouse banger. And I didn't use it for any of those things. Instead, I broke mine. So on purpose, I was like, oh, like this thing again. I I'm telling you, man, I was an idiot. Okay, might still be. Who knows? But I was like, oh, like this thing, like kind of looks like a spaceship. So I had toys and action figures growing up, so I was like, I'm just gonna use this thing as a spaceship because like I was living in Africa too at the time, so like it's not like I was around people who had this type of stuff. So I really didn't know what this was aside from being like, oh, this is called a PSP or something. But um, yeah, that's how I broke it. It's not really a super uh, proud story. It's a little embarrassing, but like very much so. It's a banger. Um, some good PSP games I played. I played a little bit of Daxter. Daxter was good. Ratchet and Clank Size Matters. People say is really good. I really want to get to that one. Um, what else, man? I played a little bit of P3P, but not on like not on original hardware, like on like my Switch or something. So, um, yeah, man. Honestly, I want to spend a little more time with the PSP. Gran Turismo. Played a little bit of Gran Turismo on this thing. It is great, just like a lot of Gran Turismo titles are. The PSP is a system that people are in love with. Not nearly as in love with it as its predecessor. The people who really know its successor, the people who really know its successor are like, dude, this thing is nice. So I'm really excited to show you that off to you guys because I have a couple of those. So yeah, man, let's get to it. Next up, the PSP. Which version is this one? It is the serial number's off on. I think it's the 2000 because the 1000 or like the 3000. I wish they just kind of call these things something else. Like the one that I see the Vita and the Vita Slim. Like when I hold a Vita Slim, I'm like, this is a Vita Slim. So I wish I kind of just called it something else. Of going like, oh, there's a 2000 model and a 3000 model because I'm sitting there like, the only thing I know is like, okay, like there are some little design changes. I think like, like you can just kind of pop this one open. I don't know if there's a Japanese thing or not, because one thing is too is that like this is the Japanese PSP, so I like this PSP a lot. But overall, right? I do believe that the PSP 1000 is my preferred PSP, probably because of just how much it's kind of got going on. It kind of feels a little more plasticky, like not really as heavy in the hands. But I still like the PSP 2000/3000 a lot, just because it does feel a little more like something I'd be comfortable taking around a lot of different places. But yeah, no, it's a great system. And honestly, shout out a lot of the Japanese Sony handhelds. They're bangers in terms of just, I don't think they're region locked, or like, I think it's very easy to like bypass that if it is. But they're also very easy to acquire as well. So the moment I was like searching and being like, all right, like, I want one more PSP, as most people say, right? And I want one more PSP to, like most people say, right? And I was like, I could just get a Japanese one and like save myself some cash. So, um, yeah. Next up, though, I've got myself the DSi. Now, the Nintendo DSi, man, what can I say about this thing? What can I say about this bad boy? So they took the DS, right? So this was an era where, the PSP, at least this is what I heard from other people. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But the PSP was like trouncing the DS in terms of reputation, in the sense of, all right, this thing can take pictures with an add-on. This thing can browse the web. This thing can listen to music. This thing can watch movies. Blah blah blah. Like, what can the DS do aside from just play games? Why is my handheld console just playing games? I'm not even clowning on them for thinking that. It's just funny because now we kind of want to go back. But Nintendo was like, okay, we got you. Boom! Built-in camera into this bad boy. You can record your voice or whatever on the little thingies, on the little thingy, I think. Um, there's a couple more things in here. Actually, I'm going to boot up one of these things. This one's modded, so I can't really. Oh wait, I just remembered that its home screen is its home screen's got regular stuff on it. Yeah, you had DSi Sound on here. You had Brain Age. Well, you had to download that one. You had Flipnote. You had a web browser. You had the DSi shop. Oh my gosh, this thing is going crazy. Actually, now that I'm looking at this thing was incredible. Actually, I'm so sorry. PictoChat. Well, yeah, PictoChat on the original DS, but like you get what I mean, bro. Like they were like, all right, we're gonna boss up a little bit. Photo Clock. The 3DS transfer tool. So you had to spend another 250 to use that one. But it was a banger, man. There's a whole lot of great stuff on here, and I find it amazing, right? Truly, truly amazing that Nintendo looked at what Sony was doing and was like, you know what, like this next revision, is about to go crazy. Speaking of next revisions, the DSi XL. This was my actual XL. I remember where I was when I got it. So I was about to go back overseas, and I was like, mom, like, can we please, like, can I please get a DSi? Like, I've been meaning to get a DSi. I've seen so many commercials about it. The original DS was, like, it was fine, right? But like being a kid, like it made sense. I wanted like the next new thing, right? And the next new thing story is about to come up again when we talk about the successors of this. And she was like, okay, yeah, sure. So we went over. It was pretty. I think I got my DSi maybe in like 2010, I think. So that should have been around the time it came out. But I got it, and man, I love this thing. So this is an OG part of the collection. The DSi original is not an OG part of the collection. What else have I talked about? The two PSPs, not OG parts of the collection, as you probably guessed. But this is an OG part of the collection. The battery actually might need replacing. That's might be the only issue it has. But like, maybe kind of those contacts that read the cartridges are a little iffy. But like overall, this thing is still doing its thing, man. It's still trucking. And I've replayed Hard Gold on this recently, and like some other DS game, I'm blanking on what it is, but I love this thing to death. It is awesome. It's cool. And apparently, like this was like the preferred DSi of old people, which makes sense because I mean it's bigger, so maybe for like eyes or something. But like, I like this a lot. Even though I really have come around to love the DSi, the small DSi, I have just I mean, you guys already know. I rode with this thing to battle, so I'm obviously gonna rock this thing forever. So me and it were like this, but No, it hits. It still hits. And I'm gonna pick this bad boy up because this is the one that I owned first. So the Nintendo 3DS XL. Now this is not my original 3DS XL, although it is the exact same color, right? The Nintendo 3DS, when I saw it, right? So Nintendo was really banking on the 3D being like the main selling point, like people being like, oh, you can play games not just in 3D, but glasses free 3D, bro. All you need is your eyes. BYOE, bring your own eyes, bro, and you will be set. You'll be straight. You'll be all good. And 12-year-old me looked at that like, oh my gosh, I need one. I need one. So I was like, okay, mom, my birthday's coming up. I think I should get the 3DS XL. Or the 3DS actually, because it was only the launch 3DS that came out, and I was like, oh man, I know exactly what I'm gonna get. It's gonna be black. This one's gonna look so dope. I can't wait to play Street Fighter 3D. I can't wait to play Star Fox 3D. I can't wait to play blah blah blah. I'm pretty sure Star Fox 3D was a launch title, or Star Fox 64 3D was a launch title. Um, and I didn't get it. Right, I didn't get it for my birthday, and so I was like, okay, cool, cool, cool. My brother got it for his birthday, and jealousy is a very ugly thing. I just get that out of the way, right? But my jealousy was a different type of ugly. It was horrible. I threw a fit. It was bad. I think at some point it was like, you know what? I'm gonna just commandeer his 3DS when he doesn't want to use it that much. And again, shout out my brother. Even back when we were younger, he was just way more chill, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's whatever." So I mean, he didn't really like. I mean, obviously, he loved gaming and stuff, and but he didn't want that 3DS as much as I wanted that 3DS. So he was like, "Yeah, sure. I mean, of course." So eventually, my time came, like maybe like a year after. My parents were like, "You know what? It's Christmas time. Um, yeah, sure, you can get this thing. You only get games during your birthday and Christmas, so um, yeah, you can get the 3DS XL." So I was like, yes. So I got a 3DS XL. It looked just like this. I got it with Super Mario 3D Land, banger video game. I played that thing over and over and over and over again. What's some other stuff? Pokemon X and Y. I mean, again, you already know the vibes. Over and over and over again. Kid Icarus Uprising. Over and over and over again. Man, what else? What else? What else? I also borrowed some games from some friends. Well, I borrowed some friends from some games. I borrowed some games from some friends. The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, banger video game, absolute peak, absolute heat. Um, I'm gonna start coining that. What else? What else? What else? There was also um Super Smash Bros. For 3DS. So Smash 4 is like the only thing that crosses my mind, and that's because eventually, when I was like 14, I contracted the brain rot, which is competitive Smash player, wannabe competitive Smash player, right? And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know. I was like, I don't need this anymore. But people were playing Smash 3DS competitively for a time, but that's like for something else. But I was playing Smash 3DS a lot because I was like, well, I can play Smash Brothers on the go now, so this is kind of crazy. So I'd bring my 3DS to school, during lunch, like I kind of open it up, like when no one's looking, because those are supervised lunches, and I'd play it like after school. Like one of my favorite moments, just because of this thing, one of my favorite moments in elementary school or middle school was waiting for okay, like it's time for me to get picked up because boy, that meant it was time for me to play this finally, and it was awesome, right? Absolute, absolute bangers, absolute heat on this thing. The 3DS has had a resurgence in popularity. I kind of already talked about this a little bit in my 3DS video. The 3DS video was also the first of the Easy Mode Collection videos. That's also another great thing I think about every single time I look at my Nintendo 3DS. Um, this console has been just uh, a blessing to me, and it's been awesome to just kind of collect for it slowly. This one's modded. The next one I'm about to show you is modded. All I'm a big advocate for modding your 3DS, and it's easy too. All it takes is 15 minutes. So what are you doing? Click off this video right now and go do that. It's not going to be an ad revenue anyway. So click off this video right now and go mod that 3DS. But the 3DS is awesome, man. So if you're not hip to the wave, uh, you might not ever get hip to the wave because the prices are going crazy. But if you want to get hip to the wave and the prices have come down by the time you're watching this video, please get a Nintendo 3DS. It's awesome. You are honestly set for anything you want to play Nintendo if you just get one of these bad boys, handheld wise. So if you want to be set home console wise, then get a Wii U. But I'm not here to preach the Wii U gospel. I'm here to preach this one instead. Now, Sony, after releasing the PSP, I'm not here to give a history lesson, but after they released the PSP, they're like, all right, like we got some good momentum. We challenged the number one leader, right, in market share in terms of handheld gaming devices. We're on a roll right now. Let's follow it up with something that's way cooler, but like let's not actually market it well. The PlayStation Vita, man. Oh my goodness. Um, this console goes crazy. Okay. Now, growing up, I didn't really think that much of the Vita. At first, I was like, oh man, this would be really cool to have. But like, you know, there's no Mario, there's no Pokemon, there's no nothing. But like, as a gaming enthusiast, like as a fan of gaming in general, as a dude who just loved playing games, I was like, oh yeah, this thing looks dope. So I was sitting there like, okay, like maybe one day, I'm gonna have it one day, and I ended up having it one day, and I can now say that this thing is an A. It's an A plus. I was trying to keep the rhyme going, but it didn't work. But the PS Vita, man, this thing is just chock full of features. It feels so premium. They finally got the camera in there. Like, dude, let's go. Sony is let's go. Sony is not letting Nintendo outlap them in anything. But this thing is awesome. These things are also pretty easy to mod too. I think I ended up no. No, okay, I didn't. I was like, I loaded up with wallpaper, so I didn't mod it. But this one that I did get, I got it off Facebook Marketplace. It is modded, but it's a banger though, absolute banger of a system. And I am so excited to delve more into the PS Vita collection. Recently, I finally got the Sly Cooper collection on Vita. Um, I've already played the Sly Cooper collection on Vita because I was like, I'm gonna load this bad boy up with the collection because I want to play the collection on the go. I want to play Sly 1, 2, and 3 on the go. And phenomenal experience. Getting that thing again was like, I kind of want to do it again. But I'm too like I have other things I'm pursuing, I have other games I'm playing. I'm trying to be a little more laser focused in what I'm doing to avoid that. But as of right now, right, um, I'm very excited about getting into the Vita collection. It's something that is really been on my mind for as long as I've owned this thing, and I think it's going to be an absolute blast once I get to it. So, but the PlayStation Vita, man, classic. I'm just going to follow right up with this thing because the Vita Slim, uh, that I think came out pretty close to the other one. So you can already, if you've ever held one of these, you can kind of already tell that like it's not as heavy. It might be like a little less premium. I still don't think it's like not as premium because at the same time though, like there's still a good amount of like glass on this thing. And they took out the OLED screen. Like I think it's now just regular LCD screen or something. And like you can kind of tell. You can kind of tell. But or this one might have the OLED. I'm blanking honestly on what the differences are, but this was pretty cool. Uh, I think the other one has a. Let me compare and contrast. Okay, they both have front-facing cameras. Uh, let's see here. Uh, uh, there's really not that many differences between these things that I'm looking at. Uh, this one has a micro USB charger instead of like whatever this thing had going on, and that's pretty much it, honestly. Yeah, just a little bit less of a premium feel for this. I remember watching the Scott DeLaw's video, shout out Scott, on the differences between these two, and I would also agree with him that I kind of prefer this one more than that one. I prefer this how this looks, right? I prefer how the original PS Vita looks, but compared to like what I want to use on like a daily basis, like if I want to play a PS Vita game, uh, I'm gonna pick this one. I'm gonna pick this one. In terms of some good PS Vita games, I played Tearaway, very good game. Sly 4, also very good. I played it on PS3 first, but the Vita version is also really, really good. Um, what else? Freedom Wars was okay, but like it's not really my, I don't know, it wasn't really my thing, so I kind of just dropped it. But I do want to like maybe give it one more go, like be like, all right, like maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. I played it around like Christmas time, and like I guess I was like, dog, like I don't know, it feels like this kind of just doing too much. Hey, that was just me though. That was just me. But the Vita, you were gone too soon, bro. You were gone too soon. Enough of that said though. I've got the new Nintendo 3DS, man. Oh my goodness. This thing is the ultimate Nintendo handheld. And I said because what would surpass it technically is in two categories, so I can't really say that it is there. But this thing is awesome. Uh, First off, insane computing power, so you can load a ton of stuff on here if you do mod it. The Glasses Free 3D is a little more stable, but at that point, but at that point, not that many people really care that much about the 3D. So it is what it is. A little thumb pad, which isn't like as horrible as like if when you're not playing a game to use it, it is. But like I just couldn't get over the fact where it's like, dog, like even if you wanted to keep it this size, why didn't you just make it slide a little more or something? Or like at least like give it a little bit of like that roundness where it's like, okay, like I can like move this up or down or like left or right. Like I understand like this should like still kind of work, but like dude, like it's just not it, bro. It's just not it. And like I like the fact that the buttons are multicolored, similar to the SNES, but the new 3DS, man, the card slot also being at the bottom. I don't know if I'm a fan of this one. Actually, I will say that. Uh, I know some people are like, "Oh, this is kind of a little better," but I don't think I'm a fan of that one personally. And yeah, so I will say also it's a little weird because it's a little inconvenient to get to, like the SD cards because of the little screws on the back. So instead of like having to open up from the bottom, you or like having to open up from the side, you can open it up from the bottom with these screwdrivers and get into it that way. And I'm sitting there like, okay, that's fine. It's really not that big of a deal, but I still believe that they could have just I don't know kept it the original way. I'll also talk a little bit about the smaller version, the original Nintendo 3DS. I prefer that version I just showed you, but this version is pretty cool because the faceplates are actually swappable. And I've got these really nice Blastoise faceplates for the 20th anniversary. I think the 30th anniversary is, yeah, the 30th anniversary is this year. And so 2016 was that 20th anniversary. Wow. I didn't know that. You're telling me that for the first time. But these are pretty cool faceplates. The faceplate thing is really dope. I also like the form factor of this playing this like I don't know, like I just like how this feels in my hand. Sometimes I can kind of feel like the new 3DS is like a little bigger in not a good way. So I'm really looking at this and I'm going, this is pretty solid. And the coloring is like way more on point with this thing. I think originally too, this thing was supposed to only release in Japan, or at least like the swappable faceplate parts was only supposed to release in Japan. But a lot of people were like, "Dog, like this is just dumb. That's dumb." Or like there was supposed to be a limited quantity of these. I don't know. It was something in that ballpark. I know the people who lived through it know what I'm talking about. But like overall, I still believe that the new 3DS is probably the best way to experience the 3DS. So similarly, Nintendo got it right on the very last revision of these things. Um, they kept it pushing. They kept it pushing for sure. Next up, though, I will be showing its successor in my console video. It's gonna though that one's I'm actually gonna break up by individual companies because there's just too much to cover in like one video. But the Nintendo Switch, man, when you hear that, that might not be loud enough for the video, but I don't care. You already know what I'm talking about. That little. All right, guys, we're about to reveal 50 farming simulators. It's heat. So this is my original Switch. Probably should have also mentioned that for the other two consoles just revealed. And I'm bad at this. Wow. So the both the new 3DSs are not my original ones. I got those. The new 3DS original, right? This one, I got on a whim when I was traveling because I was like, well, I don't have none of my games, right? I kind of want to play some Fire Emblem, so I'm gonna get this thing. Also, I'm not gonna lie, the little tangent rant. I might make a video about Fortress Weed because I'm so excited for that game. I feel like not that many people outside of FE content creators talking about it, and I'm not an FE content creator fully, but I still am like, man, like I kind of just want to talk about that game. I just kind of want to say things about that game, but that will be for like another different time. But overall, though, this was like a on the whim type thing when I was traveling for work in the original new 3DS. That one I got on Facebook Marketplace. So, but the Nintendo Switch, this one is the original OG. So it was my 16th birthday, and it was around launch time, right? But you know, my birthday was coming up. It wasn't 100% there yet. So, but it was around that time. And I told, my parents, I told my brother, I told pretty much everyone I know, I was like, man, I want to switch so bad. I didn't have a job at that point, but I was like, man, I want to switch so bad. Oh my gosh. Like, that's the one thing I want. Like, I was out of the Wii U trenches. The Switch looked like it was going to survive, like it was going to go crazy. Not like this crazy, like 150 million units crazy, but like it looked like it was going to be good. Um, it was launching with Breath of the Wild. Man, I was hyped. I was hyped. And the greatest thing too is that like it didn't even register in my head that Breath of the Wild was coming out of the Wii U. That didn't even. I was like, I want this thing, bro. I want it so bad. And I remember my brother was like, yeah, like, we tried to look for it, but like we couldn't get it. And I was like, dang, I got you, man. It's all good. And so I'm like downstairs. I think I'm like doing my homework or something. Like I went downstairs to go grab something. And so I come back upstairs to my room and I see the Switch One box chilling on my bed. And I was geeked. I was absolutely ecstatic, bro. Um, my original Joy Cons were the red and blue ones. I think I got the gray Joy Cons down the line because I actually I did like the gray. But the red and blue, I'm blessed to have even got that one and ran into that one because those ones were going crazy off shelves. Um, that entire Switch hype period was awesome. The Switch One is my 1A, 1B in terms of my favorite console of all time. It shares that spot with the PS2, primarily because this was like the console generation that was around for a very transformative period of my life. The Wii U, like I was kind of the same person from start to finish with the Wii U, but I was not the same person from start to finish for the Switch. Obviously, it's going to be a little different because the Switch was around for like 8 years. So as opposed to like the Wii U, which was around for like 5, 5, yeah, which was around for like 5, which is crazy to think about because if the Wii U and the Switch had the exact same time period, then the Switch and the PS4, no, the Switch and the PS5 and the Xbox One were released at the same time. Um, so yeah, which also I'm not gonna delve into this argument, but I think people who think that like, oh, the Switch 2 isn't like the next gen system they just aren't really keeping track the right way. The Switch 2 is the actual next gen system. When the PS6 and the Project Scorpion, uh, Project Helix, I think, yeah, Project Helix. When Project Helix releases, that's going to be right alongside the Switch 2 and the PS5, PS6, and all that jazz. So, but yeah, so I love the Switch. The version of the Switch that I used most of the time was the Switch OLED. I love this thing to death. I played so much Three Houses on this thing. Persona 5 Royal was the last game I played on this thing before my Switch 2 arrived and like basically took its spot. But this thing and we went to war, man. Whether it was going to different spots on campus, whether it was trying to practice Smash Bros, away from school, whether it was, party games, whether it was really tipsy Mario Party and Mario Kart. There was just so many, there was just so many fun times with this thing. And that's probably the thing that really inspired me to like just do this video because looking back on so many of these different systems and some of them of course there are some collecting memories, but the handheld specifically, like I was very excited to make this video because handheld gaming has been a huge part of my life forever, honestly. And to get to this point where I'm able to look back on just a majority of these things with just these fond memories just makes me very very happy. Like This isn't like my job or anything, but like some of the support I get from some of these videos and just the ability to yap and talk about gaming in the way I do, especially with my hectic and busy schedule, just being able to do it this way in terms of setting up a camera, yapping, and just having some people go like, yeah, like this is just really dope to see. I love it. I love it. But oh, this thing really fell off for a sec. The railing on this thing is not that great. Also, in terms of Switch OLED, so to interrupt my heartfelt message, I like the kickstand a lot. So I'm glad that they were like, we're gonna take this and put it in the Switch 2. But of course, like hollow this out a little bit. But they were like, oh, it gives it like more surface area or something. I don't even know what any of that means. Not what that means, but I don't know like why they even thought to do that anyway. But this thing's awesome. You're awesome. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of this video. And my friend, I will see you next time.